Welcome to Flip It Furniture. My name is Amy. In today's video, we're making over this desk I bought from a thrift store. This desk came with a sunken-in drawer, two mismatched pulls, and a top that is in less than great condition. It's chipping, as you can see in this corner. The finish is chipping straight off, so we're definitely going to have to give it a lot of love. So let's flip it. Now while I have it outside, I'm going to put my 80 grit sanding paper on and sand off the top of it. I know that this is veneer because you can actually see the thin sheet of wood veneer. I can put my fingernail right underneath it. I'll probably put a bead of glue on under that if I can fit it, but I'm not worried about it. So I sanded off the top, and now I'm using my mouse detail sander to sand off the rim. Then I go ahead and I remove all the hardware so that I can sand the tops of the drawers or the drawer fronts. So now I've decided to give wood bleaching a try. I've seen a few other channels where they used the kit, so I thought, wow, that is easy enough. So I gave it a try. You do solution A with a clean sponge and you rub it all over the area you want bleached, and then you go over it with solution B and a fresh sponge. So I did so many things wrong on my first try here, and I'm actually going to show you. First thing, I should have listened to the directions and I should have put it in a bowl, plastic or glass like it said. I didn't, and my dry time, I was hardly getting any of it out, so my dry time was extremely fast. It dried within like 4 minutes. So I learned from my mistake, ran in and grabbed a bowl when I was applying solution B, but I think it was already too late. So here's what it looks like the next day, because you're supposed to let it sit overnight, and I'm not thrilled with it, so I'm gonna do it again. But you have to add a vinegar wash before you go on to the next step. So I do a 1/4 cup of vinegar to 2 parts water, which is a 1/2 cup, and that's what the directions say. I let it dry, and then here I go with my second coat of wood bleach. So I'm pouring this time. I know what to do. I've got my gloves on too, make sure you have gloves. So I pour solution A into a bowl with the sponge, and look at how much easier I'm able to get it on there. And because I'm not outside and there's no wind or anything, I had excellent times with my drying times. So I thought it would be smarter to go and do that outside with ventilation, but I just opened my windows and I opened my door and there really wasn't a smell, so I think it was fine. So now it's been 10 minutes that I left it on and it's still wet, which is part of the directions. Make sure you read the directions and follow them. Don't be like me. And then I'm using solution B and I'm just covering solution A. And I'm also doing the same thing with all of my drawer fronts. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I go ahead and I use my Dixie Belle's White Lightning and I'm cleaning the entire base of this desk. And then after I clean it, I make sure that I rinse with a rag, and I have a cup of water there to make sure that there's no cleaner residue before I'm painting. Now here we are the next day because I followed the directions and I waited overnight, and it really bleached it. It took all that color out, but I do have a regret. I wish I would have sanded it down with more even, because I can still see a lot of the red and a lot of the brown. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet, so I'm just gonna do the repairs. I use my wood filler to fill in the holes because I know I'm missing 2 pulls. So I'm gonna replace those and use these little knobs. Now I go in to fix the sunken drawer, and what's going on is it's missing 2 little pieces in the back. So I have this little piece of wood. Sometimes I save these from old projects. If I'm, getting rid of something, I just make sure I save a couple of those pieces in case I ever need them. And I use my Elmer's wood glue, or no, this was my Tight Bond wood glue. And I just put it to the back and then clamp it on there. I leave it for a couple of hours. And then when I put my drawers in, it'll have a stopper. So I did a tester for my paint, and it turns out I definitely have tannins. I did a little test spot in the back, and I'm going to use my shellac. You can also use Dixie Belle's Boss for this because I am going to be using Dixie Belle's Silk. I'm using shellac because that's what I have. I ran out of my Boss. So I decided, of course, to go with the pink color. It's conch, and it is the Dixie Belle Silk. And I have my new zebra brush. I'm super excited. It's a 2-inch brush. I bought a new brush just for this piece because I knew I needed something that would help it go on smooth since I wasn't going to be using my water mister. And I love this brush for silk, so I'll definitely be using it more as I buy more silk. A few people ask me to slow down when I'm brushing so they can see my hand, so that's what I'm gonna do. And I wanna say when I did this, I did really long strokes. I tried to go from the top to the bottom and kind of flatten out my brush. This is self-leveling, so I'm not super worried about brush strokes, but since it's my first time using it, I was a little nervous. I will say the first coat was a little tricky because I was using a new paint. The first coat is always a little bit rougher because you're just going over the wood or whatever your primer is. The second coat always goes on super nice, and that's exactly what happened here. And I got another new brush. It's a zebra. It's a little square, an angled square. I thought it would be super perfect to use on the outlines, and it was. It made it really easy. I didn't realize that Home Depot also sells zebra brushes. I thought you had to buy them online. So I was super excited to try something new, and I like the 2-inch for laying paint flat, and I like this for the other things. I probably will still use my Wooster brush because I like the thickness. But I'm going to keep trying some new brushes. I want to step up my brush game for sure. I decided to do a paint wash, that would be the solution to the unevenness and it would kind of cover it a little bit. But I'm not even going to go through that because I ended up having tannins. You can see the yellow coming through, and it might have even been from the bleach. I'm not sure. So I'm over it, and now I'm just gonna go ahead with my little sponge brush and I'm going to apply a coat of shellac. I still love the idea of wood bleaching, and I love the way it looks when others do it, but for this piece I guess it just wasn't right. So I'm shellacking, and then I'm gonna go ahead over and I'm gonna paint it with the color I used last week on my rocker, which was Pop the Bubbly, and that was from Country Chic Paint. So I'm going to use my water mister and my brush, and I'm just going to apply 2 coats, waiting for it to dry in between coats. I guess I live and I learn, but I'm not going to give up on the wood bleaching. I'll probably try it again for another project. Just this one, it didn't work out, and that's okay. Now I move on to my hardware, and I'm using Dixie Belle Slick Stick as my primer. I do 1 coat, and then I waited about an hour and a half, and then I went back and I did another coat, and I left it overnight. Now I need to seal the top and the drawer fronts. So I'm using water-based polyurethane in matte. And I don't love a matte finish, but I'm using it because Home Depot has been out of my satin finish for almost 2 months now. I might go back and use a satin if I order it from Amazon over this matte finish before I sell it. Well, here we are the next day, and I'm gonna use this little gold paint that I have. I got it from Michael's a while ago. I'm just gonna make my own color. So I'm mixing a little bit of the gold with Rust-Oleum's white pearl. And I'm using way more pearl than I am gold because I want this to be sort of a champagne color. And because these colors are pretty iridescent, I'm gonna add 3 coats to my hardware. And I wait for it to dry in between my coats. I want to add a redesign with Prima transfer to the drawer fronts, and I'm going to use Violet Hill. I have an in-depth video on how to apply a transfer, and I will leave the link in the description box, and I'll leave a little iCard at the top if you want to check that out. I've already cut my transfer, and now I'm just measuring to make sure it all looks good. Now I take the backing paper off and I apply it. It's very sticky, so it goes on very nice. I'm using the little stick that they give to rub it on. And then when I feel like it's on, I just peel it right off. But I do this very carefully so that I don't rip the transfer. Now you just want to rub with your hands and make sure it's on, and make sure there's no bubbles. After I've applied all my transfers, I just take a nice soft sanding pad and I go over it. It's called burnishing. I make sure that there's no bubbles, that it's on flat, because if there's bubbles, it will peel off. So you want to make sure there's no bubbles underneath. And then I go with my water-based polyurethane and I'm just sealing it. So I seal straight over the transfer over the entire drawer front. And here's what it looks like all finished. I ordered this little drop handle from Amazon. I ordered 2 of them to replace the missing pulls. And I did spray the hardware with a sealer. Even though I didn't get the bleached wood look, the natural look, I still think it turned out pretty. So I'm overall pretty happy with this, and the silk was great. There are absolutely no brush strokes, so I'm very impressed and I'll definitely use it again. If you guys like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and I will see you next week. Thanks.